President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. promised on Tuesday that the first bill he sends to Capitol Hill next year will be one that passes abortion protections into law if the Democrats control enough seats in Congress to pass it, as he sought to energize his party's voters just 3 weeks ahead of the November midterms. Now, where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard somebody promise to codify Roe v. Wade in the law if they got into office? Where have I heard that? I don't know. Let me see. Like, where have I heard that?
As you were talking about earlier, the recent Bush Supreme Court's decisions really took away critically important decisions from women and put them in the hands of politicians. And as a result of this, we're expecting and have already seen so much anti-choice legislation at the state level. What would you do at the federal level, not only to ensure access to abortion, but to make sure that the judicial nominees that you will inevitably be able to pick are true to the core tenets of Roe v. Wade?
Well, the first thing I do as president is sign the Freedom of Choice Act. That's the first thing that I do.
Yeah, I heard that in 2007 from Barack Hussein Obama. And as soon as he gets into office, here's what happened.
The Freedom of Choice Act is not my highest legislative priority. I believe that women should have the right to choose, but I think that the most important thing we can do to tamp down some of the anger surrounding this issue is to focus on those areas that we can agree on, and that's where I'm going to focus. Okay.
Yep.
Jeff.
There we go. So we've heard this before. Now back to the article from the Associated Press. Twice over, Biden urged people to remember how they felt in June when the Supreme Court overturned the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that legalized abortion, fresh evidence of White House efforts to ensure the issue stays front of mind for Democratic voters this year. He repeatedly lambasted the Republicans nationwide who have pushed for restrictions on the procedure, often without exceptions, and told Democrats in attendance that if you care about the right to choose, then you gotta vote. And that's how they keep you stringing you along. Okay, now I'm a believer in voting, as we just talked about, but the thing that pushed me ultimately away from the Democratic Party, which I used to be a proud member of, is exactly this type of string them along mentality, stringing people along. Now, the Democrats have had since 1973 to codify Roe v. Wade under law. They could have done it under Carter. They could have done it under Clinton. They could have done it under Obama. And now they could have done it under Biden. But they themselves like to string people along. Now, as he's done all this year, Joe Biden emphasized that only Congress can fully restore abortion access to what it was before the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson, which overturned Roe v. Wade. But he also acknowledged that we're short a handful of votes now to reinstate abortion protections at the federal level, urging voters to send more Democrats to Congress. And there you go. There you go right there. The Democrats are not favored to maintain their majority. So, of course, they say all this now. Of course they say all this now. They always say this. You just heard the clip of Barack Obama, who entered the White House with the biggest majority any Democrat had had in 75 years when he got in office. And people go, well, it was only for the first, I think they said first 3 months. Well, guess what? The first 3 months of a president's administration are the most important time of his administration. The first 100 days is when you actually get things done, because you're sweeping into power. You have all the momentum. And that's when you get things done. That's when you're supposed to get things done. Look up Roosevelt's first 100 days. LBJ's first 100 days. You're able to get things accomplished because you're sweeping into power. And unfortunately, for us in modern times, we don't have politicians with the type of will to actually try to get things done. They're more concerned with maintaining a donor base. And the donors are not about getting things done for you. The donors are about getting things done for them. You know. And that's really the sad thing. Now, for Biden to follow through on this pledge, the Democrats would have to retain control of the House and pick up seats in the Senate. Now, they could just amend or abolish the filibuster and get it done, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. Now, abolishing the filibuster, the legislative rule that requires 60 votes for most bills to advance in the Senate amid opposition in their own ranks, will also pose a significant challenge for Democrats, of course. Long resistance to any revisions to Senate institutional rules. Biden said that the days after the June decision to overturn wrote that he would support eliminating the supermajority threshold for abortion bills, just as he did for voting rights legislation. But two moderate Democrats, aka the rotating villains, Senators Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, support keeping the filibuster. Well, of course they do. Sinema has said she wants to retain the filibuster precisely so any abortion restrictions backed by Republicans would face a much higher hurdle to pass in the Senate. Democratic Senate candidates in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the party's two best chances to flip seats currently held by Republicans, have both said that they support eliminating the filibuster in order to pass abortion legislation. Pennsylvania Senate candidate John Fetterman has actively campaigned on being the 51st vote for priorities such as legalizing abortion, codifying same-sex marriage protections, and making it easier for workers to unionize, all measures that would otherwise be blocked by a filibuster in the Senate. Now, this is what he's saying now. This is what Fetterman's saying now. And look, I like Fetterman from what I've heard from him. He seems to have a very popular streak to him. But we've heard this before from lots of politicians in the past, especially on the left. And then they get to Washington. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, they all start talking to him. And pretty soon they're neutered. Just like AOC and the squad. They're neutered. And the next thing you know, the only thing they're able to get done is send more money for weapons to Ukraine. And to maintain the military-industrial complex. So I think it's important for all of us to really understand that abortion has become an issue that the Democrats and the Republicans both use for political gain. These people are not interested in the will of the people. The majority of the public has said that they didn't want Roe v. Wade to be overturned. But as you and I know, because I've covered that story here on this show as well, that the will of the people makes very little difference in which laws actually get passed or which laws don't get passed in this country. It is what the donor class wants. The Democrats swept the power in 1992, the same year that the Supreme Court upheld Roe v. Wade by a 5-4 vote in its Casey decision. and there was a concerted effort in Congress to codify Roe v. Wade. At this point, Bill Clinton began his presidency with Democrats in control of both the House and the Senate, and with a majority that backed abortion rights. But it was disagreements. For everybody not watching on Facebook, I'm holding up the quotations. It was disagreements over how to handle the Hyde Amendment and other things that kept that from happening. Now, for those who don't know, the Hyde Amendment is basically about banning federal funding for abortion. So that was supposedly the reason why it didn't get done in the 90s when Bill Clinton had the House and the Senate. And also to show you just how serious the Democratic Party is about abortion, they are still supporting, Nancy Pelosi and them are still supporting Henry Cuellar, who is in the House of Representatives from Texas, and he is the only reliably anti-abortion Democrat. Now in the Senate, Joe Manchin and Bob Casey of Pennsylvania both identify as pro-life, but in the House, Nancy Pelosi just campaigned for Henry Cuellar in Texas against his opponent, who was to his left and was 100% supportive of abortion rights. But once again, this is how they string us along. Nancy Pelosi will go out there, she'll throw a fit about how abortion rights are human rights, and then she'll go and support somebody in her own party who doesn't even support abortion rights over somebody who does. And to show you just how two-faced Joe Biden is on this topic, when he joined the Senate in 1973, he voted for a failed constitutional amendment that would have allowed the states to overturn Roe v. Wade. At the time, he said of Roe v. Wade, "I think it went too far. I don't think a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body." Wow. Now, again, I'm generally pro-choice. I believe in letting adults be adults in a free country. Even though I'm a Christian, I'm pro letting adults be adults. And look, if people are pro-life, that's their business. I don't hate pro-life people. I don't think abortion is an issue that really is that important to the existential health and well-being of most Americans. I'm going to be real with you. I mean, unless you're having monthly abortions, like, I really failed to see how this issue is that important. And the fact that 55% of white women voted for Donald Trump in 2020 shows you that a lot of them don't view it as that important. Because Donald Trump did say he was going to fill the Supreme Court with people who would overturn Roe v. Wade. So for me, this issue illustrates how the culture wars, particularly this culture war about abortion, overshadows much more important issues like the ones we're going to talk about coming up. We're going to talk about something, hopefully we're going to get the time to do that, upcoming about COVID and about something our government's cooking up when it comes to COVID and the vaccines. Please stick with me here on WLTH 1370 AM. I am Scott Cannon. This is Issues and Answers Friday. Free Speech Friday. Free Speech Friday. Give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again is 219-885-1371. We'll be right back after this.
Feel good and